Hi guys, my name's Shane Cuthbert and welcome back. In the last lesson we looked at, that example of children and how they're praised differently, and what sort of difference that makes to us, all right? And we basically figured out that if we want to grow and we want to change our identity, we need to really start praising ourselves for the hard work and the effort that we put in, not just the outcome. So moving forward in this lesson, we're continuing on from that. We're going to build on that. We're going to go into the future, okay? And we're going to look at ourselves and who we want to be in the future. And we're going to work out, we're going to start sort of breaking down how we make goals and take the steps that we need to become that person that we want to be, okay? That happier, healthier person. So yeah, this lesson is just continuing on, and let's get stuck into it. When you look back towards, that first sort of exercise we did in the first couple of lessons, when we look back at that problem that we had, that we didn't have, and you look at how much you've changed, isn't it true that you actually look back, at the person that had that problem at that time, and you actually think, wow, how much I've grown, okay? Or, how I've changed, I've grown up. Remember how I really focused on changing your thinking, changing what you focused on. Now it's sort of all come together, and you know what to focus on. You know when to praise yourself. You understand when you're having, those pivotal moments where you can talk to yourself. You know that you are communicating with yourself all the time. In order for you to make those changes, okay, I'm sure that there would have been moments where you were growing through that identity, where you struggled with some things, and you had to stretch yourself. You had to think outside of the box. You had to face discomfort. You didn't have to, but you chose to in order to grow and to overcome that problem. Okay, because when we have problems, we need to grow to get over them and achieve, the outcome that we want to achieve. If we walk away from our problems, they stay problematic for the rest of our life. So if you think back to every single problem you have ever had in your life, there was some growth that was done, that was needed for you to overcome that problem and turn it into a solution. So the truth is, now who you are now, is a result of the growth of previous growth, of overcoming previous problems. If you were a teacher, I would tell you that when you see a student and they're struggling and they're fidgeting and they're finding it really difficult, that is a key moment. Like, you can change that student's life. Just take them by the hand, encourage them to keep going. Say, look, I know you're struggling with this, and well done. Okay, you're doing a great job. I love, the enthusiasm. I love, the focus. I love the courage that you're taking. I love, I acknowledge that you're struggling, and that's okay. Well done. Well done for trying. It's really important in those moments, as you can see by the examples in the last video, to reward the growth, to reward the steps, not just the outcome. Don't single out, students or, people that are only, doing really well and have the results. If you want someone to grow and have better results in future, it's about rewarding those steps along the way. So moving forward, if you think of a problem that you're struggling with now, okay, something that you're struggling with right now that has perhaps encouraged you to want to change and grow your identity, I want you to, instead of thinking about overcoming that problem and finding the solution and rewarding yourself for that, giving yourself a pat on the back, I want you to acknowledge that there is a process of growth, and right now you are growing. Through these lessons you are growing. You really need to know that in those moments when you are praising yourself for your effort, your inner child is listening. Your inner child is watching. Okay, your inner child is taking that all in. It's taking that praise and it's growing. When your child is growing, That's allowing you to change your identity, okay? You're making that transition as you grow into the person that you want to become. Now, because the things that you tell yourself in those moments make all the difference, it's important that you tell yourself the things that are going to make the difference that you want. So now we have, the tools and the awareness and the things that we need in order to change our identity, okay? So, the first step on that process of change, we know how to do that. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to need to go back into the time machine, okay? But instead of going backwards to that problem, that we used to have that we don't have anymore, we're going to go forward. We're going to look into the future. Now, as we're going into the future, we're thinking of a problem that we have now, something that we're really stuck on. For argument's sake, let's say that it took you 10 years to overcome this particular problem. To get to that point where you have the life that you'd like to have and you have that identity that you want to have. Let's say it's taken 10 years to get to the point where you've now achieved and you've done everything that you wanted to do and achieve. Now, 10 years sounds like a long time. A lot of you guys are probably thinking, whoa, 10 years? That's crazy. I don't want to take 10 years to get, where I'm going or be who I want to be. That takes too much time. So something I want you to think about is that time will pass anyway. That 10 years, that time is going to happen whether you like it or not. Okay? Your time is passing now. That time's passing anyway. So why not spend that time growing and becoming that person that we want to be? So if you're 40 now and you're thinking, wow, I'm going to be 50 by the time I get that ideal, lifestyle and that life that I want to live, you just got to think that one day you're going to be 50 anyway. So you might as well take the steps and begin to implement, these things now, these changes now. Let's go back, let's jump back in the time machine and let's go and take a look at ourselves in 10 years from now. Now you've got the ideal life, that life you've always wanted, and you've really grown into that person that you've always wanted to become. I want you to ask yourself, what does it look like? Okay, what does that life, that ideal life look like for you? I want you to ask yourself, what are you doing? What are you doing in that life? Where are you doing it? Where are you in that life? Who are you doing it with? What are you doing for work? What are you spending your time doing? What are you like as a person? Most significantly, the most important question to ask yourself is, what does it feel like? Okay, to be that person that you've always wanted to be like. How does that feel? Okay, what we want to do now is we want to draw a timeline, okay? We want to look at where you are now and where you want to be in 10 years' time, okay? So we've got this timeline here, there's 10 years obviously on the timeline. And let's break it up into, 10 pieces, 10 steps, okay? So you've got 10 years to be the person that you want to be. I'm going to break it up into 10 sort of separate years. Let's go forward in the time machine 9 years, okay? So you're 90% of the way there. You're 90% towards achieving the person that you want to become. What does that look like? And more importantly, again, what does that feel like to be 90% of the person you want to be? Let's go forward in our time machine 8 years. Now you're 80% of the way there. You're 80%, towards being the person you want to be. What does that look like? What are you doing then? How does that feel to be 80% there? Let's go to 7 years. How does that feel? Let's go to 6 years. What's that look like? What are you doing there? Let's fast forward 5 years. You're halfway there. You are half, the person that you want to become. You're halfway there. What's that look like? What's that feel like? What are you doing then? What are you working on then? Who are you with? What is life looking like for you when you are halfway there? Let's bring it back 4 years, 3 years, or 2 years. What about 1 year? In 1 year from today, if you are 10% of the way there, what's life like for you at that 10% mark? What about in 6 months? What about in 3? In order for you to start this journey, okay, this 10-year journey, what are the next few steps you need to take? How would you need to start thinking? What would you need to do? You know, who do you need to be in order to just get out there and get out on the way to, you know, start the process, just to begin the journey? You know, a week or two, you know, a couple of weeks in, who do you need to be? What mindset do you have just to take that step, just to step out from your comfort zone and begin that journey, you know, start that process of change? Let's say in the next 24 hours, you take that step. What do you need to think? How do you need to feel? And what specifically do you need to do differently to do that? Your ability to become the person you want to become is all about recognizing, acknowledging, and being aware of those pivotal moments and those steps that you need to take to get where you want to go, okay? It's all about recognizing those pivotal moments when you stretch yourself, when you take a step out of your comfort zone, and when you praise your efforts. The second step, you know, to becoming that person you want to be is all about how you break things down, okay? How you slice up your time and compartmentalize it, okay? It's all about breaking those goals up. If you want to be someone, that is a goal, but you need to break that down into recognizable steps that you can acknowledge along the way. Okay, getting that new job, you know, losing a kilo or two of weight or whatever it is. You know, you might have an overall goal of, you know, I want to lose 10 kilos. Now you need to break that down so you're losing 1 kilo at a time. So that's the second most important thing. The first is, you know, knowing how to recognize those moments and praise yourself correctly when you're reaching those steps. And the second is knowing how to break down those steps, okay, and make it easier for you to recognize those steps so that you do reward yourself differently. In the next lesson, I'm going to show you how to break things up in a way that makes it impossible for your unconscious mind to resist, okay? So I'm going to make it easy for you. I hope that now, after watching this whole lesson, you understand just how important it is to not only reward yourself, but recognize all of those steps along the way. I really, really hope that you see just how fundamental and important it is to us and to that identity change, and in order for us to grow, that we reward and praise ourselves for our efforts. Okay, praise yourself for being here, for trying, for attempting. Okay, that's the biggest thing that we can do on our journey of change. The most important things within your control are your willingness to put in the effort and to stretch yourself, and what you choose to focus your awareness on. When and how you decide to give yourself permission to praise yourself, as well as how you break down and compartmentalize information in your mind. In the next lesson, I'll show you some simple mind hacks which, when you put them into action, will make it impossible for your unconscious mind to resist taking on board the changes you want to grow your identity into.